Good afternoon from the Ken Air 18 RC Warbird Workshop for a list of tips for the novice RC Warbird builder. I focus mainly on 5th scale warbirds that use gas engines. You can see I've got 3D printed exhaust stacks mounted in the Hawker Tempest cowling. Flying Pal Rick printed those off for me a while back, and I finally got to put them in. Moving on to the ignition install. Even though the DLE ignitions come with steel cable braided ignition lead, I still like wrapping my ignition lead in a high quality ignition tape just to give it some extra protection against fraying. I use this 3M Super 88 tape. Costs a bit more, but sure works better. You can see I got the exhaust stacks extended. I got the flexible type pipe from AliExpress. You know, I got a bunch left if anybody needs them locally. And yeah, it came from AliExpress, I guess out of China somewhere in 10 days. It's exhaust tubing for a diesel heater, but it fit my application well, and it's held on by a couple hose clamps. You know, you want to route your wires so that you don't get frayed on the engine or the cowl. You use a lot of cable ties and wire protection. I like cutting my cable ties, the ends off them, with these NK snips. There's other brands, but these little snips work just great for making nice tight cuts. Flying Pal George put me on to that. And I'm using an IBEC now on my models. It's made by Tech Aero Designs. It plugs into the receiver and it gives power to the ignition box. Read your instructions for your IBEC. I mount mine next to the engine. They recommended mounted as far from the receiver as possible. I got a piece of foam under mine, taped on there, then it's glued on to a piece of light ply, then it's cable tied to the engine standoffs there, and then it's routed. The receiver lead is routed through the firewall and things. I'm just gonna get this camera flipped around so I can or maybe not. Here, I'll just flip the airplane over by hand here, or just turn it on the side here. Yeah, that's even better. There, we're back on top. You can see how I got my ignition module in. So on a piece of ply with some foam underneath, cable tied down. I got my wiring all protected, tied down really well. You want it tied down so it doesn't flop around and fray against the cowl or anything else, or against the engine, so it don't cause a bare wire short and the engine quits when you're doing a low worm burner pass. Or what I also like doing with my leads that go into my receiver, I print little labels on sticky back vinyl. This is sticky back monocoat. Come on, focus. And I put what it is and the channel number. This is IBEC 10, so it goes in channel 10 for the cutoff. Yeah, you can see how I mounted the last exhaust pipe there. And for the muffler, I drill holes in the bolts and then I wire them. So if hopefully it keeps the muffler bolts tight, and if they do come tight, they don't back fully out and the muffler drops in the middle of the bean field and you can't find it. I also learned to install the fuel tank and the batteries last after all this wiring is done, because there's always one more hole that's needed in the firewall to run a choke lever or a fuel line, and you don't want to drill a hole through your fuel tank or your batteries. Ask me how I know this. I'll also put a link to the Tech Aero Designs Ultra IBEC in the comment section. I got my choke lever installed. It's a manual choke lever. It comes out of the side of the fuselage. Not 100% scale, but it always works and you know where it is. Some people like using servo mounted chokes. I see them come to the field after they've been trying to start their engine for a half an hour. They're unsure if the servo is rotating clockwise or counterclockwise, and if the choke is open or is closed. And meanwhile, they thought it's been closed all the time and it's been open, or it's been closed all the time and they flooded the engine and they got nothing going. So I use a little manual rod. Not 100% scale, but it works. Oh, here's my tubing for my tank venting. I use a long piece of 1/8 inch diameter brass tubing. It's led way up to the fuel tank, and it's got a vent there. I kept it up on the side so when the fuselage sits flat on the ground, say on the truck box when you're taking the plane out to the field, you know, the vent tubing isn't bent on the bottom. Yeah, let's pour on the radio, and you can see also got the IBEC LED light mounted there, and you can hear
ignition on, ignition off.
There's ignition off,
Ignition on,
ignition on.
ignition off.
Works pretty good. Close that off, and my dual switches for the receiver on the side. So just share a bit of info about myself. You may wonder when my first gas warplane was. No, my first gas airplane was a Laser 200. I built back in 1992. The wingspan was 48 inches, weighed 18 pounds. Looks a bit crude, and it was. It was my first scratch-built big airplane. I had a Weber Bully 35cc gas engine in it. The engine ran beautifully. It wasn't the most powerful, but it did the job. Very reliable. Not my second gas airplane, but my first gas-powered warbird is the P40 you see in the background. And it was built from Plans and Flying Model magazine. It was, I think, around 82-inch wingspan. Dick Sarpolis designed the plans. It also had a 35cc gas engine. Not sure if it was a Weber Bully 2 or a Quadra 35. It flew good. Only had wire landing gear on it, no retracts. I was just starting out back in 92, 93. Couldn't really afford retracts. And you might ask, what's the oldest gas warbird still in my fleet? And it's this P51A. It's from 1/5 scale top flight ARF kit that I converted to an A model. It was built in 2008. And it just goes to show you, if you do your installs right and you don't hit the ground, warbirds can last a long time. I also want to share how I store my parts. I've been using these plastic containers for quite a while now. You know, that's got my cable ties, my RC switches, my IBECs. I buy them at Walmart or at the dollar store. It's stuff I use every day. I keep on the shelf. so that it's handy. Stuff I use once in a while, like the ignitions, they're stored in the back room. Keep my screws and smaller parts in these little trays. I've been getting around to labeling them. That really helps. I invested in one of these Brother labelers, or a dynamo labeler. That sure has made a difference. Yeah, that's the latest on the Hawker Tempest. We'll fit the cowl on. I think the cowl is going to fit on nice. Everything's out of the way. Pilot's in. He's looking good. Time to put the canopy on. Cheers now. Y'all have a good day in the shop.